You are Locked On Cougars. Welcome into a special edition of the podcast. Some afternoon stuff coming down. We didn't get an episode out on Thursday, so let's talk about Gideon George officially declaring for the NBA draft. Why don't we? As well as some gamesmanship going on in Tampa from USF with regards to BYU football. Two things to hit. Let's get to them right away. This is the Locked On Cougars podcast special edition.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for joining us. I work for the Zone Sports Network in Salt Lake City, Utah, executive producer of DJ and PK in the morning, and here with a special edition of Locked On Cougars, your second one inside of 24 hours. But some news coming down. We'll talk about Gideon George momentarily that we need to discuss. So figured since I didn't get an episode out on Thursday, I'd make it up for you guys with this special edition on this Friday afternoon. Quick reminder that we are very proud to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where the motto is your team every day. And as such, we are your only daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. So a huge thank you for making us your first listen. All right, news coming down earlier this afternoon that Gideon George, BYU swingman, has officially declared his intention to enter the 2022 NBA draft. Let me be frank off the top here. I am not all that surprised that Gideon is making this move. I had heard overtures and rumors last year they was actually considering making this move last year and entering the NBA draft. I am not surprised by this, but I think it's actually a kind of a smart move. And let me explain why. Gideon George is 6'6", 210 pounds, has every bit the athleticism you would think that an NBA team would covet in a 3-and-D wing player in the modern NBA. The biggest hindrance to his game is his ability to shoot the three ball consistently. It's something he is worked on considerably since arriving at BYU from New Mexico Community College, and I think he's coming along in that respect. He also made in the announcement that he made earlier today that he is not going to hire an agent. He will maintain his collegiate eligibility due to the COVID year and all of that. He is going to be able to play another year of college basketball if he so chooses. And let me be also clear on this. I do think he will be in a BYU uniform next year. I don't think that this is a thing where he's going to go into this draft process intent on staying in the draft unless he gets one of those so-called promises from an NBA team that promises him that he will be taken in the NBA draft. If you get that promise, you take it, you run, and you go make the money if you're Gideon George. That would be a very cool thing for him. But the biggest thing I think for Gideon George is the fact that this kid has every bit the ability, I think, to be an impact player at the NBA level if he can hone his offensive skills. Well, if you don't believe me, let's let you hear from Mike Brown. He is an assistant for the Golden State Warriors most recently, and he is currently also the head coach of the Nigerian Basketball Association, their Olympic team. Gideon George worked out for the Nigerian national team last year with hopes of making it to the Tokyo Olympics. Did not make that squad because they have a number of current NBA players who are playing in Tokyo for that team. But I want to let you guys hear a little bit from Mike Brown about what he thinks Gideon George is capable of. And this was said last summer as they were getting ready for the Tokyo Olympics.
George from BYU and Worth Alatishe from Oregon State are your prototypical NBA wings. They're long, they're athletic, they're energetic, and they do a lot for you on both ends of the floor. Their ability to get to the rim and finish above the defense is second to none, especially for kids their age or for young men their age. But more importantly, the defense that they've brought to the table so far this week, their ability to rebound, their ability to come up with 50-50 balls is at a very high level. So, those guys trying to make the 2021 Tokyo Olympic team, it's going to be tough for them because there's a lot of good competition. But everybody out at Oregon State and everybody out at BYU should feel very, very proud for the things that they're accomplishing so far in camp.
A big thank you to the Nigerian Basketball Federation, their Twitter feed for that audio and video. It's all credit to them on that. But you heard Mike Brown talk about it. This guy has been a coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He has coached LeBron James. He has worked with Steph Curry. He's worked with Klay Thompson. He has worked with some of the top talent in the NBA. He thinks that Gideon George has the ability to be an impact player at the next level. I think at minimum, Gideon George is going to be playing in Europe at the very, very worst, making a very handsome living considering where he came from in Nigeria. And I would expect that in the future, he does play for the Tigers, the national team, the Nigerian national team at some point down the road. But I really like Gideon George's game. But I think the biggest thing I want to pass along to you guys is I'm actually not surprised. I'm not surprised Gideon George is making this move, and I'm actually surprised more BYU players and more college players overall don't make similar type moves. There is literally zero downside to Gideon George making this move while not hiring an agent and going through the pre-draft process. What he gets to do is get to interact with NBA personnel, GMs, scouts, head coaches, all that stuff, and get feedback on where they see his game needing the most improvement to be a player or be an athlete that can compete at the NBA level. If you're able to come back to college and work on those skills and hone your craft a little bit more, why wouldn't you take advantage of this opportunity? I am of the opinion if you are a rotation player on a top level basketball program around the country, let's say you're a starter or you're a sixth or seventh man who plays 20 plus minutes a game, why wouldn't you pursue this avenue? Interact with those NBA folks. If you have aspirations of playing at the next level, get their feedback about what you're going to need to work on. Go back to college, work on that, and hopefully you can prove the next time you interact with them that you've improved on that, and it can boost your draft stock. Like I said, I don't think that Gideon George is being taken in this year's NBA draft. If he were taken, it would be somewhere near the bottom of the second round at very best. But I think that him making this move and going to talk with NBA coaches and GMs and the scouts that he will interact with will give him valuable feedback, let him know where he is excelling right now in his basketball game, while at the same time giving him criticism and constructive criticism at that about where he needs to work most on his game. One thing I can absolutely point to is his offensive output. He has started 27 games in the past 2 years for BYU across both the 2021 season and the 2021-2022 season, the most recent season just completed. He averaged 8.8 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 1.2 assists. He's primarily been kind of that small forward, the wing three for BYU's offense. He needs to boost those numbers. He's got all the size that you want in a 3-and-D wing. Like I said, 6'6", 210 pounds. Wingspan, I would venture, is probably closer to 6'10", in my opinion. I don't know the exact measurement on that. He shot 43.6% from the field last year, which is a good number. But the important number for a guy like him, if he wants to have an NBA future, is his three-point ability. And that was just sitting at 34.9%. Not a bad number, but if you want to be a guy who the NBA scouts will fall in love with, you need to be shooting closer to 40%, if not 40% at the college level. We all know that the NBA three is deeper than the college three. There's a direct correlation between your ability to hit the college three at a high level and that correlating or corresponding to what you will do in the NBA. I think that Gideon George is going to go and get valuable feedback, like I said, from NBA personnel, and that will give him a big time opportunity. If I said NFL earlier, I'm just now terrified. I was saying NFL personnel this whole time, so my apologies if I did say that. But the NBA personnel that he will be interacting with, it will be a very valuable thing for him. I think he comes back to BYU next year. I think he could end up as one of the key offensive players for the Cougars. Mark Pope, absolutely, I think, is on board with this move. He is going to let him go out there and get that feedback. It's similar to what Yoli Childs went through when he was exploring the draft process. Like I said, I think this is a move that more college basketball players should be making than actually do it annually. Obviously, there are guys who are no doubt first round lottery type picks, and they need to make the declaration, go to the draft, hire an agent. But if you're a guy like Gideon George who wants to play in the NBA one day, and you're probably going to have to make it as maybe a two-way player at the very best, well, guess what? Get the feedback, what you need to work on now, get into the gym, work on it, and then go out and have another big year, hopefully, in this case for Gideon George at BYU, and hopefully capitalize on that dream down the road. Now, the deadline for Gideon George to declare if he is staying in the draft or withdrawing will be June 13th. So he's got more than 2 months here to interact with these personnel around the NBA, get that feedback, come back, spend the summer working out in Provo, or if against all odds, he gets that promise that he will be taken in the NBA draft, you chase the dream. So I think there is little downside to any way this goes for Gideon George. And at the very, very worst, he finds out that, okay, maybe my future lies overseas where I might be able to make the jump once again back to the NBA at some point. But at the same time, you can make a very handsome living playing in Europe or even in his native Africa if that's what he so chooses. So I think this is a really, really savvy move on Gideon George's part. All right, coming up here in just a minute, I want to flip over to football for a moment. It's something I meant to talk about this week. I didn't get a chance to get to it. We're going to talk about some gamesmanship going on from USF down there in Tampa. Their spring game this weekend, why it, in theory, will not be an advantage for the BYU football program. We'll get to that here in just a moment. Today's podcast, this special edition, is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. They are your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, including odds, live odds for the Masters going on, podcast reviews for all the different leagues, Major League Baseball, all of that. It's covered for you guys by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today, check out all the different odds available to you now, or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action that's going on currently. That's all online at betonline.net, where the game starts. All right, time now to talk about a funny note that I think it's actually kind of smart on their part, but that is that USF is having their spring game down there in Tampa, and I'm pulling up this information here as I do this live, but they are having their spring game in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium this weekend, tomorrow afternoon, Saturday afternoon down there. They're going to have a fan fest, all that jazz, but this will not be something you as a BYU fan can tune into unless you so happen to live in the Tampa area and can make your way over to Raymond James Stadium. If you guys are able to do that, if you're in the Tampa area and you want to go do some recon for BYU football, I don't think they'd say no to this because USF is not going to stream or broadcast this spring game. Their head coach made the announcement that he is doing this essentially to keep BYU from knowing what they are doing. And I actually think it's kind of a brilliant move. Jeff Scott, the head coach of USF, made this announcement saying, quote, we had no idea. He's talking about his time at Clemson when they had Terrence Cody, Mount Cody, if you remember him from many, many years ago, a junior college transfer that nobody really knew about. And the quote here, I'm just reading this off my other screen. We had no idea, speaking of Terrence Cody, who he was until the game started when we figured out we couldn't block him. This is when Jeff Scott was at Clemson. We wish we would have known about it earlier, but some schools, due to a conference like the SEC, because of their contracts, they have to stream and play all of their spring games. So that's the number. That's the number one tape we get. We would get that and we would cut it up, and that would be the number one cut we would use because you're using it to see the whole new team. But this is why USF is not doing it. They're not required to. So therefore, they're going to keep BYU in the dark. And it's actually kind of a smart move considering USF is breaking in two new coordinators. Offensive coordinator Travis Trickett, most recently of FAU, Florida Atlantic University, making the relative short drive over to Tampa to join the USF squad. And then also Bob Shoop taking over as their defensive coordinator. Bob Shoop was a former Broyles Award finalist in 2018. So he's a pretty highly accomplished defensive coordinator. He's got 17 years as a defensive coordinator at the college level. He most recently spent the last season as a defensive analyst under Manny Diaz at Miami. So this is a guy who's got a lot of experience across the recruiting landscape and the coaching landscape. And I don't blame USF and Jeff Scott, their head coach, for playing a little gamesmanship here with BYU. But like I said, if you are a BYU fan who happens to have an iPhone or just any other smartphone or even a high definition camera that wants to venture out to Raymond James Stadium, sit in the stands and just, film the scrimmage, hey, you can send it to me. You can send it to BYU. I'm sure they'd be okay with that. And that wouldn't surprise me. And this is conspiracy theory stuff. It would not surprise me if BYU has somebody they know that lives in Tampa, Florida, who is just so happen going to show up to this spring game, film it, and suddenly it's going to show up in the BYU film department. I would not surprise me one bit. You want to get any advantage you possibly can. I get why USF is doing this. They're going out there trying to make sure that they have their best interests in mind with regards to making sure that their players and coaches obviously are taken care of, but at the same time, surprising BYU, hopefully, when they get to that season opener on September 3rd. We are 148 days away from that today on Friday, April 8th, but looking forward to that matchup. I'm looking forward, hopefully, to going to Tampa. It's not set in stone quite yet, but I would love to make that trip. I know there are a number of other media folk who have already made their plans to be there, and if I am able to do it, you can guarantee I'll be making my way to Tampa, Florida, but I'm hoping, hey, if you guys want, I can slip you some BYU gear or something. If you want to go over to that stadium, if you happen to live in the Tampa area or want to make the trip over there and film this game, hey, it wouldn't hurt you to maybe help BYU out a little bit when it comes to that matchup against USF. All right, that is going to do it for this edition, the special edition of Locked On Cougars. One quick note for you guys before we go. Today's show, this special edition, is brought to you by our friends at Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a very interesting product because it brings you 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens into your diet in one drink. It's absolutely incredible. Just one scoop of AG1, as they call it, will give you all of this. It's a lifestyle-friendly product, whether you're eating keto like myself, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It works with all those. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It's absolutely incredible. Many people take a multivitamin, yours truly included. I'm actually going to look forward to giving my first shot at trying Athletic Greens. It's a micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every day to take great care of yourself. As I said, 75 positive things, vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens into your diet via one scoop that you mix into water. It's absolutely incredible. The best part is Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover from that. It cost him over $100 a day. This is going to save you a significant amount of money and hopefully help you guys out as well. As over 7,000 five-star reviews, it's recommended by professional athletes, trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. So give it a shot, my friends. It's easy. My Athletic Greens can give you a 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/college. Once again, that's athleticgreens.com/college to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. That's with our friends at Athletic Greens. All right, that is going to do it. Like I said, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. If you have not done so here on this Friday, make sure you guys get over and check out Locked On NFL Draft as your second listen of the day. It is a great way to get ready for the NFL Draft coming up later this week. They bring the draft to life every single day. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy whatever's left of your weekend whenever you hear this, and I hope you guys are all doing well. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast for April 8th, 2022, special edition. I'm out. See ya.